Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2.
confirm live streaming has begun. Thank you. Okay, members, agenda item 1 is apologies. I have received apologies from the Vice Chair, Councillor Alexander, and the Deputy Chief Executive, Charlene Stoops. Is there any apologies from the floor? Alderman Baxter?
Alderman Greenfield and Alderman Mutley.
Thanks very much, Alderman Baxter. There's no other lights on. Okay, members, agenda item 2 is declarations of interest, and we'll take these as we go through the meeting. Agenda item 3 is going to be a presentation on Navan Fort. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Patrick Gleeson along to tonight's meeting. So Patrick, I'm going to hand over to you now.
Share my screen then. Okay, so am I okay to start? Yeah. So thanks for the invitation. It's great to get a chance to speak to everybody and keep everybody appraised on what's been happening. So as probably a lot of you will know, perhaps Navan Fort is an incredibly important site, and myself and my colleagues have been working on it for around about 5 years. And so through those 5 years, we've how did I get this to? Oh yeah. Through those 5 years, I suppose we've been making quite a lot of discoveries. When we started our work at Navan Fort, this is essentially what we thought existed at the site. There was 3 or 4 main monuments. We had Navan Fort itself, which you see on the screen. We had Haughey's Fort, predecessor, late Bronze Age Hill Fort, and then we had the King's Stables associated with that, and then an earthwork called the Craigavon earthworks that divides that landscape and essentially separates Haughey's Fort from Navan Fort. This is our working sort of database of everything at the moment, just to give you a sort of set this the scene in a sense. For anybody who's not familiar with this landscape, the site on the bottom right-hand side of the screen is Navan Fort. Very small in comparison to everything else, but everything that you see on the screen is a new discovery, is a new monument, a new feature that we've uncovered in the last 4 or 5 years. So by comparison to what we knew existed a couple of years ago, this is an incredible sort of sea change in our understanding of the landscape. So while Navan is still the centerpiece of this landscape, this is a landscape that is probably best described as a palimpsest, the place where generation after generation have come to invest different significance in this place through time. One of the most incredible discoveries is the site you see in the centre of the screen is the largest monument on the island of Ireland, completely unknown previously. A hill fort, probably late Bronze Age, so about 3,000 years old, that is 2.2 kilometres north-south by 1.6 kilometres east-west. This is an incredibly significant part of Navan's story and one that adds to its complexity. But I think what you see, hopefully, in this picture is that this landscape is a tapestry, and our job as archaeologists is to try and unpick the weft of fact from the warp of fiction, to understand in that landscape essentially how it changed through time and how it was used through time. And that's really what our excavations are for. So in a nutshell, when we move to Navan Fort itself, that site on the bottom right-hand side of the previous slide, everything that you see on the slide presently is also a new discovery within the complex of Navan Fort itself. So Navan Fort, by definition, is the monument defined by the enclosure, but also by the 2 sites, Site A and Site B, that are the recorded monuments. But everything that you see here is a new monument that we've discovered through non-invasive survey, and a new monument that adds complexity to our understanding of the site, but also then needs to be characterised and dated, because while we can interpret these as archaeological features, without excavation, we're not really able to say what date they are or the exact character of those monuments. So that's really why we've been doing some excavations over the last 2 years, very kindly funded by council. In particular, we've been given permission with colleagues in the Department for Community for 6 excavation trenches, and we've completed 5. Our process is sort of iterative, so we're question-led, and as we answer questions, it means we address or reframe the questions as we move forward the next trenches, or we might not need to open up the trenches as they stand. And in all of those features, so from the previous slide that we're analysing with those trenches, we're targeting features to try and characterise and date them, to essentially see if they're archaeological, but understand how they fit in with the picture of the complex. And of those 5 trenches so far, we've had an 80% success rate, which means we've encountered archaeological features, significant archaeological features in all of those trenches in 80% of the cases, and all of which are a really good return for non-invasive survey and ground truth. So the first trench, just to briefly mention, is an incredible discovery. This has a series of timber structures and palisaded enclosures, which you can see the negative features of in the process of excavation. These are a series of post holes and a palisade slot for timber structures, again, previously unknown at the site. But what we think these are part of a large, essentially temple complex of the middle part of the Iron Age, so around about 400 BC to 200 or 100 BC, an incredible depth of features in these entities. So we're probably talking about posts that are 3-4 meters high in these features that don't survive, but that we can see when we excavate them. So this is just of that trench, a plan to show you the features that I'm talking about. So we have one large timber post enclosure on the north-hand side of the trench, and then on the southern side of the trench, we have the wall of what looks like a structure of the Iron Age. This is only a very, very small intrusive investigation of these features. What we're probably looking at is a monument that would have required around about 1,200 posts. Again, thinking about those as pieces of oak that would be 60, 70 centimeters in diameter, up to 3 or 4 meters in height at a very minimum. This is an incredible complex that we can extrapolate from even this very, very small intervention. So very significant Iron Age discoveries. And then again, related to that complex and probably contemporary with it are the features in this trench here. That is a series of large enclosure features that precede the monument of the earthwork that you see at the site today. So everything that you see at the site today was built in 95 BC, thereabouts, whereas these are earlier monuments that preceded. So they're probably around about 3,000 to 2,000 years old. And what we have in this trench is an incredible discovery for a variety of reasons. But firstly, what we seem to have is absolutely enormous post pits for huge enclosures. The depth of these posts are 2.7 meters below the ground surface. So these are cut through bedrock for a huge timber structure, that none of which survives. And then a palisade enclosure that is another part of another enclosure to that. But the very unusual bit is the bit on the image on the top right, that is a series of 4 closely set posts that you can probably just about make out on the screen. It's a bit obscured here for me, but this has a series of timber posts in it that have been burnt in situ. So a huge timber enclosure or complex that's been burnt to be destroyed. And that is something that I'll come back to in a minute, but it is a completely unique monument for this part of the island of Ireland, and a very, very rare monument. The next major trench that we had is this monument, or this trench that you can see here. If I can find my mouse, it should be just about here. Sorry, it's not shown up on the screen, but it's the one on the far right-hand side of the screen, just beside the ring bar-like structure in the very center of the monument. And here what we have is, again, a series of pits and features that relate to timber structures. And in this case, it seems to be a palisade that is an avenue approaching the interior of the site that, again, we didn't know existed, as well as a much later feature that looks like it's maybe 500 or 600 years old in terms of its age. And then finally, we did an excavation on the monument of Site A, the central feature in the previous slide, and the very, very central monument in the enclosure that you see today. And partly because this is a very enigmatic monument. And what we found is very fascinating, but we found evidence that this is a much later structure than we would have previously known. And probably this is a medieval structure, a medieval monument with a medieval building in it. That is the first evidence of medieval activity at any of these royal sites, any of the so-called royal sites from the group of royal sites that includes the Hill of Tara and the Rock of Cashel. Our star finds from all of the excavations were these 2 beautiful objects. On the left-hand side, probably an antler pendant that's been carved on 5 sides and has a small cut on the top of it that's been perforated to be worn around the neck. And this is a very unusual, very rare object. And then on the right-hand side, a belt buckle that's probably from around about the early medieval period. So around about the 8th century AD, 12 or 1300 years old, almost pristine. We mistook it for a bottle top when we found it, but this is a very rare object and a very high status object. So just to kind of wrap up, essentially what that leaves us with from a kind of a whistle-stop tour is an incredible range of new features and new monuments from Navan Fort. That includes the complex that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. So even though we've done very, very small interventions, essentially what you see is a completely new monument mapped out in red there, a large figure of 8 shaped ritual structure across the hilltop. And then on the right-hand side, those four closely set pits from a few slides ago, the only comparator we have for this is the temple at Lismullen to the northeast of the Hill of Tara. That is the only one from the island of Ireland previously excavated, but it looks almost certainly like that's what we have here at Navan Fort, preceding the earthwork enclosure that you see here on the site. So alongside those two new Iron Age phases at the site, we also have then the first evidence for medieval activity, and particularly evidence for later medieval activity that's completely unknown or unrecorded at this site. So we now have 2 millennia of unbroken activity at Navan Fort, whereas we thought its chronology was much, much shorter previously. So that's where I'll finish in terms of kind of talking at you. If anybody wants to ask any questions, I am more than happy to talk about anything. Just to thank a couple of people.
Oh, sorry, I thought you'd finished.
It was just to say thanks to landowners and particularly colleagues that have helped with the research over the last couple of years.
Thank you very much for that, Patrick. That was fascinating to find out there's some new discoveries at the fort. So there's a couple of speakers have indicated they wish to come in. Councillor O'Hanlon, you were first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Dr. Gleeson, for your presentation. I suppose I've had the privilege of going out and meeting you and the team as part of the dig, and I have to say I've been very, very impressed by what has been found and by your work. I suppose for those of us of Armagh heritage, we'd always have valued the importance of Navan, and I suppose in relation to the view that without Navan there would never have been the hills of Patrick and the story of St. Patrick coming to Armagh and Christianity. In terms of your assessment as the strategic importance of this site, both on the island of Ireland and across Europe, maybe I'd just ask for a comment in relation to that. And I know later on in the agenda we're talking about the partnerships with the other royal sites on the island of Ireland and the UNESCO bid. And I think it's important that those are an important next step. And I want to thank not just you and your team, but also Brian and Sarah and the team for their commitment to both the site and the project for the last number of years. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Hanlon. I'll bring you now, Patrick, just a comment, not okay?
Yeah. So thanks very much. Just to take the latter point on the royal sites, I think what we're discovering is going to add incredible weight to the UNESCO bid because of the fact that we can now point to tangible medieval evidence, which is very rare, very unusual at these sites. As a group, that's the missing piece of the puzzle. And that's partly the reason they've been nominated to UNESCO in the first place, is because of the presence of medieval significance for these ancient sites. So that evidence is now very, very significant in that regard. And as regards to the significance of Navan on its own, it's difficult for me to point to the monument of Navan in one sense and say, you know, where it sits on a spectrum. But I think what's important is that the situation of Navan in a landscape that is now known to be incredibly significant for a very, very long period of time, that lends weight to that idea that essentially the reason Patrick founded Armagh on the hill of Armagh and Cathedral Hill is because of its significance as a part of that vast and incredible ritual landscape. So it does seem now pretty clear that what we have evidence for is a very important cult centre, cult landscape with incredible religious and ritual significance from the Bronze Age through the Iron Age to the very cusp of early medieval, the early medieval period. And actually we have some radiocarbon dates from Navan Fort that are from the lifetime of St. Patrick himself, which is very, very unusual to be able to pin something down to that close in time. But also the significance of the scale that we're now appreciating in our work in terms of understanding the much bigger monuments in the nearby vicinity around Navan makes it much more compelling that on the one hand, we have these incredible monuments stretching the landscape to the west that makes it much easier to stretch the landscape to the east and include Armagh as a part of that spectrum. So certainly I would agree. I don't think Armagh is founded without the incredible significance of Navan Fort as a pre-existing focus for elite and ritual activity in that landscape. Does that address you?
Thank you very much for that, Patrick. And I'll bring in Councillor O'Kane now.
Thank you very much, Chair. Paddock, thank you for the presentation. It just goes to highlight how important this Fort site actually is in the scheme of royal sites. It was good to hear that you had a percentage of 80% find, which is high. I take it in your work. Have you is there any future plans for more digs coming?
Thank you, Councillor McKeon. Bring in Patrick.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the 80% what I'm referring to there is that what we use to identify archaeological features is non-invasive survey method. So where essentially we use magnetic radiometry, electrical resistance, which measures the properties of the soil to determine where disturbance is, and we use kind of experience to determine what is archaeological and what isn't. It's very rare then to find out that the vast majority of what you've recognized as an anomaly in those surveys is actually archaeological. And in this case, it seems that an unusually high percentage of what we're identifying is turning out to be significant and archaeological and belonging to a very early period. Because, for instance, when we detect a structure, that could be a structure built in the 19th century, or it could be a structure built 2000 years ago. And that's what we have to excavate to find out. So in response to the second part of the question, then it stands to reason that excavation is a hugely important element in our toolbox in terms of understanding the complexity, but also not just relying on identifying features through non-invasive survey that then don't turn out to be significant. So ground truthing is hugely important. So in that respect, at the moment, we sort of exhausted our remit in terms of the funding, which has very kindly been given by the council, and in terms of what our objectives were. And they were really to ground truth what we'd done at Navan Fort itself, to understand whether we were recognising legitimate archaeological features, what date they are, and how they relate to the overall complex. And I think we've done that really successfully. But we've done it with excavation, which totals probably 0.003% of the entire complex. So a really minuscule, tiny portion. So there's a huge amount that we could do more at the complex of Navan itself, but also in terms of those hundreds of new finds and new monuments in the immediate vicinity and in the surrounding landscape, because they're an incredibly important part of the Navan story. To go back to one point that I made, everything you see at Navan Fort today belongs to 95 BC or later. And for the most part, the main monuments were constructed as one event, one horizon in around about the 1st century BC, so around about the birth of Christ. And everything else that we're talking about has no above ground trace, but yet we know that there's activity stretching 2,000, 3,000 years before that, and perhaps 1,500, 2,000 years after that, right the way through to the present day. So we have at least 2,000 years of unbroken activity. But the exact character of all of those features and their relationship to activity at Navan and Navan Fort and elsewhere is the next question, if you like. And I think that's where it's my job now to go and seek funding for that, to make this into a much larger project, and one that's maybe perhaps more comparative in a Northwestern European context. So that's the next task for me as the archaeologist in charge.
Thank you very much for that, Patrick. There's no further speakers have indicated. Patrick, thank you very much for your time this evening on your presentation. I think there's more to the Navan story, and hopefully you'll get funding and you'll be able to continue your endeavours. But thank you very much for your presentation this evening. Just give Patrick a moment to leave the room, members. Okay, members, that takes us on to agenda item 4, and it's the Head of Economic Development report. There's a few decision items. We'll start off with decision item 4.1, COVID Recovery Small Settlements Regeneration Programme, active travel. So, Nicola, you're taking this?
Yes, Chair, I am. Thanks. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. 4.1 is a report on the COVID Recovery Small Settlements Regeneration Programme, Project 5, Active Travel, and the decision required. It's recommended that members approve the report Small Settlements Active Travel Master Plan and agree to appoint an ICT team to realise the works of this funded project.
Thank you very much for that, Nicola. Members, there's a decision there, the reports there, there's a few questions, so I'll bring in Councillor Savage first. Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Nicola, for the report. It seems a long time ago that we're standing in Guildford Community Centre at the consultation. So it is. I'm glad to see that this is finally moving forward and that an ICT team is going to be appointed. And hopefully we'll keep to that timescale of March 25. Indeed, in the report, as you read through it there, it has highlighted a lot of the problems that exist within our rural villages, not small settlements. And I suppose there's responsibilities there of other departments that need to step up to the mark and to deliver. Whenever you have footpaths in villages that wheelchairs can't even use and so on. And I know that has been well versed, and I think it's important for our rural settlements that they are joined up to the urban areas, that the safe active travel, that we can carry that the whole way through as much as possible through our council area. And I think that's vitally important. But look, in the round, I'm happy to propose and just hopefully this gets over the line. And I know there's areas there that need to be sorted. And I note that Warrenstown is active, that's allocated there for Warrenstown, and I'd like to see that moving as quickly as possible as well, and Donald Clooney. But also, we all are well aware of the issues within Warrenstown in regards of the last scheme that went ahead there, and that needs to be looked at going forward as soon as possible. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Savage. I'll bring in next Councillor O'Hanlon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Nicola. I don't see Brenda in the room, but I know it was Brenda and I was going to say the late Julianne, but Julianne formerly of of this parish, in relation to actually met them out on site in Katy with a number of local community reps, as Councillor Savage says, quite some time ago. And then I think there was a workshop we attended in Richhill in relation to it. Look, I want to welcome the proposals, and maybe for clarity, I think there were 13 projects there, but we don't have, whilst we have money, we don't have enough money to complete all 13 at this stage. Is that correct? I note that they're ranked in order from 1 to 13, and I'm just seeking clarity that the money's allocated to the projects in order of rank order as to how they were scored. So obviously those that were scored highest come first and work their way down through the list. Obviously we want to ensure a spread across the geographical area, but the projects were scored and funded in that way. So just want to get clarity as to see how out of those 13 we decide then which of the 13, or am I of the understanding that you take them in rank order as they were scored on the matrix? I know in relation to Katy, I've spoken to road service and they're keen to get moving on it because they want to tie in some other works as well. But like Councillor Savage, keen to see projects move quickly and get done in time for the scheme deadline. And happy to second the proposal for the paper in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hanlon. Nicola, we'll bring you in now to answer that question about the funding and prioritisation.
Sorry, Chair, I keep turning the button off after you pressed it. Yes, in relation to the funding, there are 65 projects identified, as you know, and 13 have been recommended as being able to move forward in the short and medium term. And it is from the report, it reads that there is enough funding for all of them if they come in within the budget that is set for them. So yes, they should all be done if we can get the partners to work together and if we can get everything moved. And you're right, yes, we'll start in rank order. Start with obviously number 1, which is Katy.
There's a reason for asking the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hanlon. Next up is Alderman Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, it's good to see investment, especially particularly into the rural areas. But I suppose not trying to be negative here, but I'm just looking at getting parochial, the Donald Clooney scheme, the new lighting between the green space between the Leicestershire Road and what's called Bird Road there, but I'm assuming it's Bird Avenue. Look, that would be very welcome. But I suppose the issue I have with it is I've been fighting with road service for the last 2 years. Road service DRD have give a commitment right across the country that they took away lighting from back streets and back paths. So they've literally just about 8 months ago taken the lighting out of that particular area and refusing to put it back. And it's really, it angered locals. Now they've settled down now, but I'm just a wee bit conscious if we start to put lights up there again, they're going to start hammering on my door and hammering on Councillor Savage's door. She's told us those lights couldn't go back up because road service aren't doing them. And you get them on that path up there. What about the rest of the passing down at Clooney that all got their lights taken down? So this is going to cause a wee bit of confusion here in the community, and I have to say that. So it's a wee bit bizarre that that's the type of thing that we're funding. And again, look, £200,000 be very, very welcome for Warrington. Any investment in the Warrington is very welcome. But Councillor Savage touched on it there. The last scheme that we've done, there's been a huge issue there with the paths, and it'll be well documented. I've sent numerous emails back and forward as of others. We need to do something about that. That needs addressed. There's a footpath there, and I know it's passed all the tests and passed all the skid tests and whatever. But the reality is, there's people falling on that footpath every week. And Councillor Greenfield in his absence won't mind me saying he fell on it the other day too, and actually wrecked himself. You know, maybe he was acting easy. I don't know what he was doing, but there's a real issue there. And I know when you get the power hose, I don't know if there's a residue off the trees. There's been all sorts of things, but those paths haven't been adopted yet for road service. So they're still under council's responsibility. And last night we sat in the committee here talking about golf balls going into Lockgall Park, and we would be liable. It's going to come to the stage because there was a person hospitalised recently. Now, they haven't been an issue of it, but they fell on those footpaths, and it's going to come where there's going to be claims against this council. So that needs addressed. So when I think, look, and it's wonderful that we're spending £200,000 in Warrington, that's great. But people will ask the question, they'll ask it of me and they'll ask it of Councillor Savage, why you spend £200,000 on that whenever the footpaths will be put in before? Aren't you, people are avoiding them and walking on the road and they can't walk up them? Surely the money would be better spent in things like that. And I know that's not how this works because this has all been scoped out and studied, and this is where we are with the paper, and that's fine. But I'm just trying to sort of articulate how people will come to us. First thing's about the lights. She took lights down, you're putting them back up again. These footpaths aren't fit for purpose. You're going to put a cycle lane in. You know, when you look at the cycle lane going into Banbridge or past the academy, there's never a bike on it. You know, and that's just the sort of criticisms that we get as elected representatives. So I just wanted to put that out there and put it in the public record that whilst we're, you know, delighted that money's coming to the real areas, we know there was lots of consultations and stuff, and that's where we've scored, and that's fine, and we'll have to probably go with it. But expect criticism from the public because it'll come through these channels. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Alderman Baxter. Next indicated speaker was Councillor Lawver.
Thank you, Chair, and it's great to see this level of investment in active travel in the borough, not just in the more urban areas, but in those rural settlements as well. I hope that we're entering into a brave new world in terms of DFI with increased requirements for funding of active travel measures. I think it was in the recent climate change legislation required DFI to spend 10% of its budget on supporting active travel, and that just doesn't mean greenways or cycleways. As members pointed out, it's about connecting rural communities, ensuring full accessibility of all areas. So it's good to see. And one question I had for Nicola, I know we're talking about these 13 shortlisted projects which are funded. I touched on it there. DFI have a lot of active travel money in this at the present time when everything's getting ramped up. They're maybe struggling to find some projects to actually spend it on. Is the possibility that we could come to DFI with all our sort of 50 reserve projects, and for the ones higher up in there, to either secure additional funding from DFI to potentially progress these? Because if it's the scenario that we have the plan sitting ready, reasonably scoped out, ready to go, all we need is the funding, we can maybe deliver them in-house by council itself or those other contractors mentioned in the report. I think we could, you know, end up delivering more than the 13 on the list. I know there's other larger projects in terms of different other greenways and footpath connections that were maybe outside the 13 just because they're on a bit of a larger scale, but they're definitely deliverable and they've been talked about a long time. Well, just maybe any queries around that, but it's great to see these fantastic 13 projects go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawver. I'm sure Nicola can contact the DFI in regards to if they have any funding that might bring these projects forward.
The report was done with DFI as well, and as you know, the idea was to get a really long list of everything, so the 65 projects are in there, so if DFI can move anything forward, we're saying, look, go for it, that would be great, and it's all about partnership working and working together, but you're absolutely right, it's not just those 13 projects that we have funding for, it's let's pick off the others that whenever other partners come forward with funding, we can do together.
Thanks very much, Nicola. Alderman Barry.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Nicola. I like my other colleagues, I certainly welcome funding of any nature when rural, but want to ask the question, is it a proper way to use such resources? Because, you know, I take a look at my own area of Laurel Vale, Mullavilla, you know, what's it really saying? You need a few more bicycle stands, is that what it's saying? And, you know, there's other areas there when it talks about existing level of signage and wayfinding and talking about traffic calming measures already in place, but there's evidence of speeding. You know, this has been raised with road service before, but they're not fit for purpose anymore because they'll just send you an email and report it to the PSNI. I don't think there's anybody working in road service anymore. So, you know, who do we engage with in road service? Because they'll point you to the PSNI when it comes to measures of this nature. So I would like to know exactly what we're actually doing in these areas, because I could think of other better ways to use resources and use finance to improve the village settings. Like I see there in Market Hill, it mentions about the A28 as an obstacle for cyclists, but then when you go for the main opportunities, an opportunity to enhance connections, how on earth do you do that across that busy road? How do they propose to do that? One of our former councillors, Alderman Spears, was constantly on in relation to a footbridge across that main road. That's the only way you would connect it. So active travel promotion in Market Hill, cycle parking, seeing a bicycle parked outside a shop unlocked. Are they serious? You know, are they really serious about this? Like, you know, because to me that's comical. Like, if you're going to get a message in the shop, you're going to stick your bike outside the shop. You're not going to park it 50 yards down the road or put it to a bicycle stand. So I would like to see something more serious in this, something more beneficial. And as for Tanrigee, please excuse my ignorance, but I don't know what they're for doing there, because we've had a public realm relatively new and fresh, which is 20-year-old. It's a very busy town, which we don't need to be told. Wide streets with ample parking, potential for a parklet. What's a parklet? And, you know, what are we getting out of this? You know, as I say, funding is welcome, but is it a proper resources of funding for these rural areas? Because I'm sick to the teeth of going to the likes of road service raising issues about road safety measures for villages and for town centres, and even more recently where there's been a need for barriers in a local village, pedestrian barriers, and the clowns in road service, and I don't mind calling them that, will come back to you and say, sorry, that's a PSNI matter. They don't exist in there anymore. So we've got to get serious here, in my view. If we're engaging with them people in the road service or whatever you want to call them, well, I would love to meet them, because frankly, they're doing nothing locally at the minute. And I just, whilst I welcome any funding coming to the areas, quite frankly, I think there could be money better spent. We don't need to be told there needs to be a better connectivity between Gosford and Market Hill Town Centre, but I can't see how this is going to deliver on that. And a bicycle parked outside a shop is hardly a need for a bicycle stand, is it really? Is that what they're really suggesting? So I would like to see something more meaningful. And when they talk about road safety measures, who on the earth are they going to consult in road service? I don't understand it. I'm sorry, I'm peed off with the road service at the minute, because they're totally ineffective, and frankly, I don't think they're fit for purpose anymore.
Thanks very much for that, Alderman Barry. And like, this report is about active travel, and there's some funding for small scheme works, and that was made clear at the presentations. You know, we knew what we're getting out of this, and we can't make it any better than what it is, I suppose. So I know where you're coming from, but we'll take it on the basis that's what's in the report. Councillor McElrath, you were looking in.
Thank you, Chair. And listen, there's really none of these projects really in my DEA, so maybe I'm not that qualified to speak, but I do share some frustration reading through this report. I really do, because I do live in the DEA that has quite a number of impacts. And to be quite truthful, I share my colleagues' reservations here, Alderman Barry and Alderman Baxter. If we look at Market Hill, again, if we're serious about Market Hill, is connecting the town to Gosford. And as Alderman Barry has alluded to, it's been raised many times before in this chamber by Alderman Spears and others. And that's where we really need to be looking. And I don't really see, I see a mention of some sort of uncontrolled crossing mentioned for the A28. And that would be totally unsuitable. But, you know, if we're really serious here, we're talking about a footbridge across that, connecting the village and the town to Gosford. And that's really important. The other thing is that has been raised with people in Market Hill himself. We're talking about new footways and new footpaths. There's a fantastic sports complex out at Kilclooney, and children and young people have to walk from the village out that road to that sports complex in dark evenings and so on. There's already been one fatality on that road in recent times. So, you know, I agree wholeheartedly with Alderman Barry on this. There's issues there that are not in this report that should be, and that, you know, even come back to my own town where I live, the footpaths, constantly people on to us about the footpaths and the state of the footpaths. So I think, you know, we could maybe have included the footpaths there, and I know DFI have responsibility, but you know, when that's going to be achieved is another thing. But if we could get the footpaths cleared from overgrowth, you know, we had 18 months to do one in my own area, and when no one did it, we went and did it ourselves, where people were pushing, sent me a video of a pushchair that nearly was tipping out onto the main down Armagh Road. So, you know, if we're really serious, and we shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth in a sense, because there's money here and it will be welcomed. But if we're looking at a programme going forward, let's really sit down, analyse where the needs are. If we want to connect these tier 2 towns to the communities and active travel and getting young people out and so on, walking, families out walking, the existing network that's there, let's make it, I feel like I'm going to say roadworthy, but footpath worthy. So yes, I do share some frustration looking at this report, and hopefully some of it will be taken on board going forward. But yeah, just a sense of frustration, Chair, about some of the issues that haven't been included.
Thank you very much, Councillor McElrath, for your points. Members, this was proposed and seconded by Councillor Cade Savage and seconded by Councillor O'Hanlon. Are we agreed? Okay, thank you. Members, I'll take that sense as agreed on that. We're going to move on to decision 4.2, the Northern Ireland Food and Drink Association Awards Dinner. And Nicola, you're taking us again.
Yes, thank you, Chair. 4.2, Northern Ireland Food and Drink Association Awards Dinner. Decision required. It is recommended that members support the attendance of the Lord Mayor, Deputy Lord Mayor, Chair and Vice Chair of the Economic Development and Regeneration Committee and Chief Executive at the Northern Ireland Food and Drink Association's 17th Northern Ireland Food and Drink Awards Dinner on the 15th of March 24 at a cost of £700.
Thank you very much, Nicola, for that. Councillor Savage.
Thanks, Chair. Look, it's very important that we are present at these awards going forward, but, you know, do we need 4 people at it, or would 2 people do at the event? I've no real problem, but I says, you know, whenever you see £140 a ticket, there's still a lot of money, but it is vitally important that we are present at the awards and that, you know, our food and drink is very important to this council area, as we all well know, with the work that's done through the Food Heartland. But, you know, I've no problem proposing it, but I think, you know, we need to maybe look, do we need 4 people going, or will the Lord Mayor and the chair of the committee be sufficient? That's all I'd ask, you know.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. You did propose it, did you? But you wanted to look at the numbers. Yeah, it all depends who's available anyway, because you know what it's like these things. I don't have a chat with Daria, Councillor Flaherty, but you know what these events are like. You know, sometimes there's a ring round to try and get people to go. So, Councillor O'Hanlon, I'll bring you in next.
Yeah, Chair, it's just on the same thing. I thought our policy would have been to be the Lord Mayor or the Deputy, and then the Chair or Vice Chair. I think it's just a bit excessive. You know, if we're going 5, I think we should trim it back, and it's usually the Mayor or Deputy and Chair or Deputy Chair. Plus, and I think I see here the Chief Executive. So if that's the case, I think it would be, my understanding is policy was always that way, and I think we should be keeping to that. Just get it relooked.
Councillor O'Hanlon, Alderman Baxter.
Yeah, I was just going to say what Councillor Hanlon said. I just propose, if it has been proposed, Lord Mayor and the Chair and there's a Chief Executive or Head of Development, whatever it is. Please plant it.
Okay. Okay, members, so I'm taking the new to the room is we're going to propose that there's 3 people go, the Lord Mayor, the Chair and the Chief Executive. So Councillor Savage proposed that. Councillor O'Hanlon seconded. Are we all agreed on that, members? Is that okay? Everybody content? Okay, members, we're going to move on to 4.3 and it's an urban centres report. And Helen, I think, what's Helen? Helen, you're taking this report, aren't you? Thank you. I'll really bring it. Oh, sorry, Helen. There you go.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. 4.3 Urban Centres reports. The decision required is due to the tight timeframes for spend, which is the 31st of March this year. It is recommended that members agree to give delegated authority to the Interim Strategic Director, Community and Growth, to sign the letter of offer from the Department for Communities, and that £6,000 is used from the Economic Development Budget to finance Council's 10% contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Helen. Members, you've heard the report and the recommendation from Helen. I'm going to bring in Councillor Flaherty first.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me in there. Thank you very much, Helen, for that report. No, we speak a lot about the town centres, you and I, for some reason, and I know you're very, very busy and you take your time at these things. You have a tight time frame here. I know we have new staff in place, I believe. You had a wee walk around Portdown with you, which was great, and it was very well appreciated, some of the call-ins that he did. So, yeah, I think this looks, you've thought it out well, and the campaign sounds like a catchy little title, Spring into Town Centres. Can I just say one thing, Chair, if you allow me to? When you're getting into the guts of this, could you please have a conversation with some of the other departments in council, and maybe when we're springing into our town centres, we could spring clean them a wee bit, because there's not a day goes by that I am not, we're all of us live in this borough and we love it dearly, and we see it, we have eyes and we see, but there's not a day goes by that we are not getting, I'm sure I can speak for the vast majority of councillors here, we are not getting photographs of graffiti or dereliction or something that shouldn't be somewhere. Today's was the day again for the River Banbridge. We know it's not our first rodeo with this, guys, and I think maybe the DFI are going to need to get a wee touch about that bridge again, because we've had this before. We maybe will have a wee word through Environmental Services Committee again. I sent another letter again to DFI. But I think maybe if we could have a wee bit of that chat going on, it would really help. It would help our traders and just improve the overall look of things. I think would be just helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flaherty, for that. Councillor Savage, bring you back in.
Thank you, Chair. It's great to see Councillor Flaherty with a spring in her step. So that's, but look, happy to second that. And I see their International Women's Day, you know, that'll, I take it that'll be spread right across all the urban centres. You'll have a rep from each spot. No, good work and keep up the good work. And thank you very much. But I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Right, thank you very much, Councillor Savage. Did you propose that, Councillor Flaherty? No, thank you. Councillor O'Hanlon, bring you in.
Yeah, Chair, but very brief. I just want to support the initiatives and also support Councillor Flaherty's comments in relation to spring clean. I think we're still waiting on the power washing scheme that we were promised during COVID. That still hasn't happened throughout the city centre of Armagh.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Holland. Probably more for environmental services, that one, but it's going to be, but we can pass that on. So that was proposed by Councillor Flaherty, seconded by Councillor Savage. We all agreed? Thank you, members. Item 4.4 is the evaluation of Christmas 2023, and it's an information item. So if there's anybody wishes to ask any questions on it, Councillor Flaherty.
I'm nothing if I'm not predictable when it comes to this. When it comes to Christmas, there's one thing I will never miss. I will never miss it. And it's that relaxed Christmas event that you have. And I know yourself, Helen, and Julianne in particular worked really hard on that this year. I've written a few things down, but I've spoken to you about it at length. It's not the first time and it's not the last time I'll comment on that relaxed Christmas event. That it's an event that we really should be very proud of in this council. It's a very, very special event for families and children. Most of you know where my background is on this, and it's particularly important for families whose children have extra medical or can't even talk tonight. Sorry, I get all emotional when I talk about this event. It's so important for these children that maybe it's the only experience that they get. And you really went above this year. And I know we were maybe slightly dilatory about changes. They worked really, really well. I did call out to see them. I think I've always said this, and I encourage other councillors, please go and see what happens at this event and what it's like. The improvements and the changes that were made were excellent, Helen, excellent. This new sensory equipment, which I know we'll be able to use ourselves again. I see in this report, you mentioned that, and you mentioned building on that. That's important that we do that, and we can roll them out into other events. And one of the other recommendations, which we always say every year, is bigger, bigger, bigger. You know, if I could run that and let you run it for the month, we would. I understand, and I am with you on it, that the quality of it is much better than the quantity. But see, that is a recommendation, and we've got to find some budget. I say we start looking for some budget for that. So let's go looking. Let's go looking. I know money's tight, but when we do something in this council well, we should be singing it from the rooftops that we do it well and that it's appreciated, and let's enhance what we have. Thank you very much, ladies in the department, for all your work on that event.
Thank you very much for your comments there, Councillor Flaherty. I'm going to bring in next Councillor Hawken online.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks again for the report. Yeah, it was just to put on record my thanks, and I would hope that it would speak for most of the councillors. My thanks to the maintenance team and the guys involved in putting up all the, you know, the trees and different things. There's just so much stuff, and when you see it written down in the report, you do get a sense of just how much is involved in it. I suppose the one worry I would have is that with such limited staff dedicated to an extended period of time to make all these things happen, it just worries me that we are maybe missing out on our day-to-day maintenance issues and things like that. So look, in general, in the main, I'm saying it's a very positive thing. It's great, and thanks very much. I just worry that the bigger these things get, and Councillor Flaherty touched on how big some of these events have got, there's almost always a push to make them bigger. I just worry that we don't actually have the staff to make them bigger. But just wanted to put my my gratitude on record. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hawken. Councillor Savage, you're indicated next.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in again. Look, just to be aligned with the comments there already, you know, our staff and all went above and beyond. I know Julianne, who's no longer here now, and also Laura is the ones that I have been dealing with out in my area. And to thank you very much for the work you've done, but also the maintenance team, as Councillor Hawken has said, the maintenance team go above and beyond as well. And sometimes they're forgotten about. And I know on the events working group, we're looking at already started to look at this Christmas coming forward. and what can be done to help and what efficiencies can be made in that. And there's a lot of ideas floating about in that. But we have got to be, we've got to be taking a serious look at this going forward. And we hope that this year will be bigger and better with the measures that's needed and support that's needed for our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. I'm going to bring in next Alderman Baxter.
Thank you. In the words of a former councillor, all has been said, but not all have said it, so I'm going to say mine too. Yeah, just in the back of that, what Councillor Hack and Councillor Savage said, Ian and his team, Ian Harrison and his team at those events, second to none, like honestly. I'm just looking at the ones there in the towns and the attendance and the work that goes on behind the scenes. Just to put on record, I have the counter from our own one. Our community one in Donegal, we had 1,764 through the gates, which it actually beat Dromore and it nearly caught Lurgan. So for a rural village, we're certainly punching well above our weight. And that was run by the community. But I have to say it like, because it's, it's all credit to the council and it's the guys in the council that come out. Without that help, and I know we'll have that events piece coming, but without the help, without the stage and the barriers and, and the supply to toilets and all that, that event just wouldn't happen. But I think for a small village, and I'm not blowing our own trumpet here, but to have nearly 1,800 people at that event, and it's, it goes down really, really well, and especially with the kids and all those. But all credit to those guys, and sort of, I'm looking at them thinking, these guys are tradesmen and they're out here moving barriers and doing all that. Is that the best use of resources? It probably isn't. But they do it with a heart and a half, and all the credit to them. So if you could pass that on, I think on behalf of everybody probably in the council, I think we all think the same thing. And of course, what Councillor Flaherty said, you can't put a price on that stuff, in terms of what we do in that Christmas for those kids. So like fully supportive of that too. But I know Christmas is expensive for the council, but it's certainly something we do, and anything a council does and puts their hand to like this, we do very well. So certainly through the events workshop that we're having, we'll take this down and try and streamline it a bit and try and make it more efficient. But we do it really, really well, and I think we're the envy of a lot of councils actually for what we do around Christmas. So yeah, that's all I want. I just want to put that on record. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Baxter. Next is Alderman Barry.
Thank you, Chair. I would just agree with all that has been said. I think this council goes above and beyond for Christmas, and it is very evident. And I think, as Alderman Baxter has said, we're probably the envy of many councils in Northern Ireland for the programme that we put on for Christmas right across the borough. And it is very welcome, urban and rural, because over more recent years, the rural towns have thankfully benefited from that. And I think I would just like to place on record, as others have done, to the staff, to Helen and to Julianne, and she's away, hopefully just for a period of time. But they're the front people who probably bear the brunt on many occasions of negativities out there that come with this. But I think it's just important to let them know that we are very thankful and really salute them for the work that they have done, because with their leadership and direction and positivity, because they really love the job that they do. And it's clear that when the Christmas events are put on, we have people who are running those events who really enjoy it, and that makes all the difference. And working with us and working with the community, there's so much praise out there for the council staff like Helen and Julianne and other staff who really deliver, and also to the men on the ground who work tirelessly. In fact, it gets to the stage by the end of the Christmas events, they're bound to be totally and utterly physically and mentally wrecked, and then they have to try and celebrate Christmas themselves because of the vast amount of work. So yes, we look forward to the events and having those conversations, because I do believe, like everything, we need to fine tune. We need to see how we can improve and make things better, and see what has worked and what hasn't worked. But all in all, I commend the staff right through the organisation who helped to deliver that Christmas programme, because it is a really first-class programme. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Alderman Barry. Councillor McElrath.
Thank you, Chair. Listen, I'll be very brief. I just want to say to Helen and the team in relation to Pour Down, I mean, I was probably publicly critical of the road closures in Portadown for the switch on. And it's good to see that that has been addressed. I want to thank Helen. Julianne's moved on, but she was there. She had a very good meeting with the traders there a couple of weeks ago, and that was really appreciated because we asked for that. The feedback was taken, it's in the report. And if we're publicly critical, it's also important to publicly thank our staff if they go that extra mile to try and sort things. And I want to say thank you. And also the two animation events, the 16th and the 23rd, money it came from DFC in relation to the flood alleviation situation. That was also really appreciated, and those two Saturdays went down really well in Portadown. So just by way of thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor McElrath. And the final word goes to Councillor O'Hanlon.
Thank you, Chair, and look, just like others, want to add my thanks to the teams, and in particular Julianne, who, as I said earlier, is no longer with us, but Darren being in the team, Akin Katie and Emma Gribben and Noreen O'Callaghan as well. But there's one thing I do want, well, sorry, in relation to the light switch on and Mini Market and Katie, it was very, very well done this year. It was different compared to last year, and we used local traders, which was very much appreciated. But one thing is that it's dropped off the list over the last 2 years, and that's the Santa experience in Armagh City. And I'd like to see us redouble our effort to try and get that back again. I know it's something that the traders really appreciated, but it's also something that families really appreciated as well. And if we could see that looked at an early point and get that programmed in next year, I think it would be very, very useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Hanlon, and thanks to all members for their kind remarks about the Christmas events. We do know the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to make them a reality, and very much thank you to the staff who do it. So we'll move on then, members, to agenda item 5. It's the Head of Tourism, Arts and Culture report, and there's 2 decision items. First one, 5.1, is response to Arts Council of Northern Ireland Strategic Plan 2024 to 2034. Consultation document. So Brian, you're going to take us through this.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. So as the Chair has said, this is the Arts Council strategy out for 10 years. Consultations open to the 5th of April. So we have had a go at filling in the responses that we would suggest and the Council and Committee endorse. There's a lot of alignment in here between the Council's community plan and the Arts Council plan, also with the corporate plan. So we think, you know, there is a good fit. So the recommendation before members this evening is that you approve the submission of the response to the Arts Council for Northern Ireland consultation on a strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Brian. Councillor O'Hanlon, you've indicated your speak.
Yeah, Chair, happy to propose just one thing. The Arts Council push the whole idea of Culture Night, and it seems to have dropped off our radar in recent times, and maybe at a future meeting of the committee you can bring back a report about getting it back on, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Hanlon. I'm sure, Brian, that's something you can look into. Is that all right? Yep, no problem. Okay, members, had that proposed by Councillor O'Hanlon. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Savage. So that's proposed by Councillor O'Hanlon, seconded by Councillor Savage. Are we all agreed? Thank you, members. We're going to move on to item 5.2. It's a request from the A. Russell Society for a letter of support for the development of a cultural centre in Lurgan. So, Brian, you're going to take us through this again.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, the report outlines. There was a letter received by the Lord Mayor from Jim Conway on behalf of the A. Russell Society, looking for a letter of support for a cultural centre in Lurgan. And again, the details lined out there in terms of what it is. There isn't a financial ask at this point. It is in the future. It is looking council support. They have identified a building in the middle of Lurgan Centre that they would like to develop, and they think there would be a validation from council would help their case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. I'll bring in Councillor Maggle.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm like many councillors, I suppose. If you bump into Jim Conway, you're within 10 minutes. You're an expert in George Russell. Do you know what I mean? So, And I spoke to Jim about this idea they have for a cultural centre in Lurgan, and I mean, he's madly passionate about it. So any support that council at all can give, I'd be happy to support that. So I'm happy to propose a recommendation, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Michael. I'll bring in councillor Lovey. You were second to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've had many conversations with Jim myself. Certainly 10 minutes seems like a short one. Jim is very passionate about the subject. It's not just Jim, to point out as well. There's a very committed, group there that's developed over recent years. I know they've been involved in a number of, council events, town centre events, that Helen was running. So certainly we could articulate some of that, their various guises and presentations. Albeit, we're not able to help them financially at this stage, but certainly in terms of that letter, I think would all be agreed on it. So I'd be happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillor Lovey. And we can agree that Jim is very enthusiastic about everything, and he's taught me a lot of history about my own area, so he has, that I didn't know. So I'll bring in councillor Savage next.
Aye. Thanks, Chair. I have no problem supporting this. We Jimbo, or whatever you want to call him, he can colour you at times, so he can, but look, happy to in agreement with it. So
Thank you very much, councillor Savage. So proposed by councillor Michael, seconded by councillor Lovey. Are we all agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, members, there's two information items. One relates to the Marketplace Theatre Pantomime 2023 and the Georgian Festival 2023 evaluations. Councillor O'Hanlon, I'll bring you in now. As long as you don't use the line, oh no, it isn't, in relation to the pantomime, I'm happy to bring you in.
Oh, no, I'm not. Chair, first of all, can I just, it's just really to express thanks to the teams involved in both the pantomime and in relation to Georgian Day. The pantomime, I didn't get to myself, but I had two very happy children who were at it. But in terms of the occupancy and the successful rate of that, I think it shows the importance of running it. And it's great to see local schools and community organisations actually linking up to it. It used to bug me in the past whenever I've seen them heading off to Belfast to the pantomime, even though there was one in Armagh. But it's great to see such a high uptake to it now. So well done to Jill and Vinny and the entire team there in the Marketplace Theatre. Equally in relation to the Georgian Day, and I know we trialled the issue around the additional charging for the light show. It didn't stop people coming. In fact, I know whenever I was in town, met colleagues from Derry and Strabane District Council who were up and who come every year because of it, and they were really, really impressed by the quality of the event that we run. And I've said it in the events workshop. There's a couple of wee tweaks that I would make to it. Some of the stuff, do we really need the guys running about the courthouse in terms of what does that generate in terms of footfall? But equally, there's an issue around where the food stalls were located this year and that they were in Russell Street. I think it was very tight and in terms of people queuing up for the different food stalls. So maybe looking at bringing that back to the car park in Lennon Hall Street. But overall, thanks to Jill and the team for another very, very successful event.
Thank you very much, councillor O'Hanlon and Brian. You've made a note of that, so we can bring in the next events working group or anything in relation to this. All right. So Alderman Baxter, you're looking to speak next.
Yes, it's just a very brief one, Brian. In terms of Georgian Day, I was at it this year. I haven't been for a number of years, only been twice, and it was excellent. Like I have to say, and it was thronged with people, and there was a good night on the light show and all. It was really good actually. So well done to all the staff for that one. Just a second point, the Marketplace Theatre, the pantomime, I assume we made a profit, didn't we? Did we break even at that, or did we lose money in that one?
Bring Brandon now, Alderman Baxter. Around, is that something you can reveal, or is it? Yeah. Go ahead then.
If I could say, and thank you, Councillor Hanlon, too, for the comment. So I would like to acknowledge the team at the Marketplace Theatre. This is a massive undertaking. I know there was one recently imported down with some of our staff here working on that. So a huge undertaking, huge commitment. And it is, as you last year was our best pantomime ever season in terms of income. So it's our most profitable time of the year. Doesn't cover the costs of the theatre obviously throughout the year, but it's really profitable time, and we've it maxed out, we think, sort of this year in terms of performances and shows. And again, it depends on what the Christmas Falls as the many shows we can do, but I would just say just the team on that. And if you would permit me just to say on the Georgian Festival, and it's come up with the event working group, there's a really robust evaluation behind this, and the only negative is that we're estimating that £900,000 was spent this year in Armagh City as opposed to just over £1 million usually. But the positive being that with 38,000 people in the city this year, and it's Sarah, just because I get the credit, it's credit to Sarah and Jill Robb and the team for making that work. And I think with the DEA members even sitting down and looking at some of those tweaks, so there are various things that come along, and we would have an argument back as to why Russell Street works best in terms of logistics. But if members of the DEA members would like to sit down well in advance and we can talk that through, that'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you very much for that, Brian. Councillor O'Kane.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, for letting me in there. Like my colleague, Councillor Hannon, I'd like to thank the staff behind the pantomime for, I think it was 95% rate, which is extremely high, you know, as you say, it's the highest probably yet. And then I'm going to Georgian Day. I had very little complaints about the Georgian Day. I think again, it's going from strength to strength, so it is, and it was again one of the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor O'Kane. There's nobody else indicated they wish to speak, so we're going to move on to agenda item 6, and it's the Head of Community Development Report. And it's a decision item. It is the PCSP Draft Action Plan 24-25. And Alison, you're going to be taking us through it, so I'll bring you now, Alison, all right?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. The decision item before you this evening is with regards to the PCSP Draft Action Plan for 24-25. As members would be aware, the PCSP are required to undertake an annual review of their action plan, and this is in line with the strategic objectives and requirements set down by the Policing Board and the Department of Justice. The partnership met in November and undertook this review, and subsequently this draft action plan has been produced. Just to note one or two additional items, the partnership itself will consider this action plan for approval in principle on the 15th of February. And in addition to that, the Joint Committee have not as yet confirmed the funding allocations for 24-25. So all PCSPs have been advised to draft the plans based on the current yearly allocations. Members, the decision item before you tonight is to recommend that the draft PCSP action plan is approved to the Department of Justice and the Northern Ireland Policing Board for approval, and to accept the subsequent letter of offer when received. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison, for that. Is anybody declaring an interest as members of the PCSP? So we'll just make a note of them now. Myself, Alderman Baxter, Councillor McElrath, Councillor Flaherty. Oh, okay. What's that? Yep. Oh, yes. Keith? He's otherwise. Do you want an interest? You're a member of the PCSP, Keith? You can't hear. Sound went. Can you hear me, Councillor Hawkin?
Yes, I can hear you now, Chair.
So no, it's just you're just the PCSP draft action plan. Do you want to declare membership?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose that. Yeah.
No, just your membership. Your membership.
Sorry, I can't hear
Just
you.
your membership of the PCSP, Councillor Hawkin.
Yeah, declare an interest on that. Thanks.
No worries. So first to speak is Councillor Maggle.
Just happy to propose, Chair. Okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maggle. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second, but just want to put on record the fantastic work the team do throughout the year. Like many members say, we go to PCSP about all sorts of a wide variety of issues, and they do help to contribute to making the borough safer for all residents, particularly senior citizens. And know they do a substantial amount of work. And when you go through the action plan, you just see the vast array of programs they are involved in. So it's again happy to second that, but thanks again if you're able to pass the thanks on to the whole team there. Did great work. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Flaherty.
I should have knocked that off. Thanks. Oh, thanks, Chair. Yes, I've declared an interest there. I've been on PCSP from I ever come onto this council, and it is quite something to be on. It is a great part and a great working example of what we can do in council. And Alison, I have to say, the turning the curve exercise is also something we really look forward to every year. So look, it's great to see this, and I know it's been proposed and seconded, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Flaherty. So it's proposed by Councillor Maggle, seconded by Councillor Lavery. Are we all agreed? Agreed, members. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to seek a proposal and seconder to go into committee. Councillor Maggle, Councillor O'Kane, thank you. Okay, members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into a confidential session of the council. This means that we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask the ICT officers to please turn off the feed and confirm with me when a confidential section of this meeting can proceed? on, so we can start the proceedings again in open session. Thank you very much. Can I seek a proposal second to agree the recommendations made in committee? Councillor O'Hanlon, Alderman Baxter. Okay, members, agenda item 8, you'll be glad to know there is no relevant other business. So it just remains for me to wish everybody, members and officers, good evening and safe home. Okay.